talk to you about, in this one I'm going to talk to you about metacognition, and I'm going to talk to you about the best ways to actually revise. Now I don't know, I don't think I was streaming for that first little bit there, so I'm going to start from scratch. It's a bit embarrassing. But today there are 3 streams going on after this one of which is the black hole image. I'm going to talk about a black hole image. Another one is the GCSE requests. So people have been asking me for things for GCSEs, and at 4 o'clock I've got the A-level requests. So do go ahead and jump into any of those streams. Let me know please if this is coming through loud and clear. As I said, there's still time to be requesting things. If there's anything that you really want me to go through in the GCSE or the A-level live feed, then do just say. There's absolutely still time to do that. In this one I'm going to talk about how to revise effectively. I'm going to talk to you about the best way to use past papers, which is a request from Lane, and I'm also going to talk to you about why I think that some students fail. So let's jump into that in just a few moments. Alright, so this is one of the most important things in learning. It's called metacognition. It's, in short, it's thinking about thinking. It's thinking about why some things work and some things don't. Thinking about thinking, though, is a bit too simplistic for you guys. It's thinking about why, for some topics, making mind maps, going over lists of things, work really, really well, and other topics, it doesn't work so well. So this video really is all about that. It's all about this idea of metacognition. And really the deepness of it is analyze the process of learning. Do some things, whether they are using checklists, whether they're using the specification, whether it's using past papers, to think to yourself, how well have I learned that thing? Rather than just thinking to yourself, right, okay, it worked one time, it works in works for one subject, but maybe I'm going to keep plodding on with the exact same thing and expect it to eventually work with this subject. That's not always going to be the case. So make sure that whatever you are doing, you are taking your time to think, how did that actually work for me? Did it work for this topic for me at this time? It might work differently for somebody else. Different ways of learning work differently for different parts. I'm going to jump into the chat just really quickly. If there's anything else that you want to say for later on, then do that. And I'm going to come back with the best way to use past papers. Nothing going on in the chat. That's absolutely fine. So Lane's suggestion was that he had been using, I don't know if it's he or she actually, Lane, they'd been using the, what's her name? Unjaded Jade method, which was something that Unjaded Jade's teacher suggested to her that that is the way they should be using the past papers. Now I'll put that in the description, the video for Unjaded Jade's method, so if you wanted to check that out afterwards. But here it is, really kind of simply. I'm going to jump into the visualizer for this. It's this little bit here, right? It's using a little list of numbers called marks, and going through a past paper and actually ticking off why you didn't get marks, rather than the marks you got, ticking off the marks that you didn't get. So if you didn't get marks because, well, you got the maths wrong, which, you know, a lot of physics would be like that, or you got the application wrong, or you got reading the question wrong, so you didn't really understand what the question was asking you, or you got communication wrong, or you get the knowledge, so you just didn't have the knowledge to do it, so you know you couldn't explain your knowledge, or you didn't actually have the knowledge in the first place. And lastly, you didn't get the marks because you didn't make an appropriate number of statements, right? So this was the reasons that she had, and she would go through a paper and she would like tally off, oh God, I've missed 3 marks for this, I've missed 10 marks for this, I've missed 4 marks for this, and so on, until we realise, okay, I need to work on my application of my knowledge. So I know my stuff, but really I don't get where the question is asking me for. So the application of the knowledge, and actually that's something I'm going to talk about later when I talk about black holes. The application of the knowledge is the area that that person needs to work on. So this is very, very good, because this is a bit of metacognition. This is really good for looking through and making sure you're looking not just at what you do or don't know, but can you do the skills that you're asking for. I will look back into the chat in a little while after I've just finished this section. Now, I like that, and there's another tip that she also gave. I really like this method. I really thought it was a nice one. Another tip that she also gave, which was make sure that you learn and you look through mark schemes and you learn set explanations, things that are coming up time and time again in explain questions. And actually I've got a list of physics set explains for A-level, so explanation questions that have come up time and time again in physics papers, and they are on my website, and that's in the description. I've also got another thing, a really important thing that I think for physics papers to learn and to memorise, which is the laws and principles. And I've also got derivations, okay, 2 videos on those that are all in the description as well. I'm going to go back into just the normal camera. Well, so I think that's really, really good. Now that was from her biology teacher, and now I'm not going to get disparaging. I promise myself I'm not going to be mean about biology in this live stream, but that doesn't necessarily translate perfectly into physics. And I think the reason for that is probably that first bit about maths, right? The first bit about maths, well, actually, if you're looking at which maths, which marks have you lost because you didn't understand the maths in physics, well, most of the questions are maths questions. Even if they're not necessarily like calculate questions, then it's still going to be related to formulas. Your explains are still going to be related to formulas. So I would suggest that if you did that for a physics paper, you probably find that the vast majority of marks you lost were actually in one way or the other, they were because of maths going wrong. So that's why I don't think it's necessarily the best thing for physics. What I would think is it's an excellent example of doing some analysis and finding your weaker areas. Now, at the front of every single mark scheme, there is a list of the assessment objectives, or you can find them online if you like as well. There's a list of assessment objectives, and I would maybe look through those as being instead of being marks, that kind of set way of looking through maths application, read the question, communication, knowledge or statements, actually use the assessment objectives, a little checklist, because a lot of mark schemes have the assessment objectives actually noted onto the mark. So if you didn't get that, you didn't get AO1, then your knowledge and understanding isn't good enough. If you didn't get an AO2, then it's your application. So you might have the knowledge, but you're not able to actually understand what the question is really getting at. You're not relating your knowledge to that context. And then lastly, the analyze and explain, the AO3, the hardest skill really. If that's the case, you need to practice those skills. Okay, I'm going to jump into the chat because there's a couple of good questions there, and then I'm going to get on with why I think some students fail and why I don't think you will fail, basically. Somebody's just asked me one of my favourite questions because it's an excuse to plug my little book. Oh, it's just that there is chat going on, but it's just that my window isn't coming up. So do you know what? Forget seeing the chat. You can all see the chat on your whatever you're watching on. So I'll just do the normal thing. Just do the normal camera view here. Always been told to draw graphs in pencil, but the exam paper say to write in black pen. Is that no? Still draw graphs in pencil on the draw graphs in pencil on the paper as well. I suggest getting a clicky pencil. Okay, this is the fancy clicky pencils that you can get through Amazon, and they're linked through my Amazon store, which is in the description as well. I really like these because as you write, they stay sharp, and you need to use a sharp pencil because you need to be accurate to half a small square on the grid. What's the best way to learn formulas? Memorise Equations for GCSE Physics is a book that's exactly the title of what you want. This again is through my Amazon store. There's a link directly for it, I think, in the description as well. I think this is a really best way to do it. I wouldn't recommend you write them over and over again, although some again, if that works for you in that case, if you think about, okay, I write them over and I actually, I do memorize them, then do you know what? That's excellent. That's an excellent way because it's worked for you at that time. That's what I'm talking about initially with the idea of metacognition. You know, what works for you for learning that particular thing is the most important thing to look at. This book's good though, because what it has is it has 3 very simple questions, one of which is just use the formula as it is. So there's force in newtons and area in meters squared, and you just have to use the formula as it is, get the answer. You can do it pretty much in your head. The second one you have to rearrange, but you don't have to do the conversion yourself. And then the last one, calculate the force produced by hydraulic press in a piston. So again, it's using the thing rearranged, but this time you have to convert units yourself. So what it is rather than just writing them out, okay, it's making you use them really quickly on your own. And it means that hopefully by using them, you're not only going to memorize them, but you're also going to know how to use them well in the exam. So I would absolutely recommend that. It costs £3.50 and it's available from Amazon, and I get 35p for each copy. That's really a lot of money, I know that. But yeah, it's practically giving it away, isn't it? Anyway, that's that. So I like that one. Should I still bother making notes? No, you shouldn't, Diana. That's actually what I'm going to talk about last. One part of why students fail, and I get that question a lot. So just hang on for a little while, and I'll talk about that in a little while. I remember you once saying you had to remember definitions exactly. I think that was in one of your Get a Grade 9. Yeah, absolutely. Videos. Do you have a list of key definitions to learn? No, I don't, but most revision guys do have them. When I eventually write full kind of textbooky bits, then I will include that type of thing. I do have, I'm telling an absolute porky pig there, because on my website, there is a full list of GCSE definitions actually, so go ahead and go to my website, and if you just use the GCSE tab, you can find all of that. I'm generally scared of GCSEs. Now this is a nice one, Sarah, so I'm going to take my time on it. Scared of GCSEs, not nervous scared. I can't shake the feeling of it stressing me out. My mum said to take some nerve pills for the exam to chill me out. What do you think? I don't know. If your doctor suggests that, I would do that. But if it's nerves, then I would talk. If it's like a case of medicating yourself, then always go with your doctor for that kind of thing. Don't just self-medicate. I think, well, do you know, I'm gonna go on to the next bit, because it's why some students fail and why you guys definitely won't. So, and I'm going to answer both your question and Dana's question as well. Okay, in that section, I've sort of planned to do that, so it's quite nice to do that. So, just bear with. Okay, why do some students fail at GCSE? The reason is because they don't care. So you do care, and that's why you won't fail. Okay, so some students don't do very well, and they do below their target grade because they haven't worked hard enough. Now, don't forget, as you're going into this period, you've been studying this stuff for 2, maybe 3 years. Okay, GCSE, I think kids start GCSE a lot of times in year 9. You've been studying it for that long, and you've worked hard on it. So really, like, remember that you've put in the effort. Should you make notes, right? Well, okay, should you make notes, then it was a good idea to have made notes. And actually, if you think about it, if you look back at your exercise book, that is a set of notes on every single lesson that you've done throughout the year. So use that as your notes. Now, if you've done notes throughout the whole topic, okay, throughout the whole year as you've been going, and they're beautiful and they're lovely, then use them now to revise from. But if you haven't got notes, that does not necessarily mean that you didn't care and that you're probably going to fail. That isn't the case. Okay, you were paying attention, you were there for those lessons, you did do your best in them. My exercise books when I was a student were quite scruffy and everything like that, and I wouldn't have never have made notes, and I would just use a revision guide to help me answer some questions. So no, if you've got notes, great, use them. Don't stress out though if you didn't do that. Maybe that's not your learning style. Maybe that's not the way that you're going to actually learn best. Don't think now I have to find 20 hours to, you know, devote just purely to physics to make notes. That's not the case. Notes exist, that you've got the revision guide and use that. So again, it doesn't, because you didn't make notes throughout, doesn't mean you didn't care. Now, in my experience, the students who care never fail. They never do badly. They never do below really their target grades, unless for some reason their target grade is way higher than what they're expecting. They always come out with something that they're happy with, because, ladies and gentlemen, there's only two grades. There's a grade that you're happy with and a grade that you're not. And the reason that you'd be happy with it is because you know you put your very best effort in. And the reason why maybe you wouldn't be happy with a certain grade is because you know you didn't put your best effort in. Alright, I hope that helps. Now, that's really for you guys, that I know you're feeling like this right now. And just remember, look forward to this summer that's coming, and get there knowing you've put your very best effort in. And if you can go into that exam hall knowing you've put your best effort to prepare for that in, then you don't need to be worried at all, because you will get your best grade. You won't suddenly forget everything that you've spent years learning. It will, you know, yeah, I know it's a high stress situation, but in actual fact, once you start getting fewer and fewer exams because you finish courses, you find that you have these rests in between. You find you have like sometimes 3 days in between exams. You get this half term in the middle of the exam period. And actually, if you think about mock exams, they were really high stress situations as well. And actually, the real thing, a lot of people find the real thing to be less stressful than that. So I hope that helps. You won't fail. You're here. It's Friday in a holiday. You're here listening to me rabbit on because you care, and therefore you'll do really well. Alright, I'll just finish off now with just a little look through the chat. Now, if you're GCSE, come on back later. Come on back at 3 o'clock. Everyone come back at 2 o'clock, because I'm going to stop in a minute and then I'm going to come back and talk about the black hole image at 2 o'clock. GCSE, and if there's any more requests for GCSEs, come back at 3. And A-level students come back at 4 o'clock. And we'll just, any other things like that, we won't fail. Yes, there is no such thing as fail. Anyone else doing A-levels yet? Loads of people. Lane, I hope that answered your point earlier on for how to best to use the exam papers. If not, you might need to skip back and find that a little bit later. Yeah, you did your own set of mind maps. That's great. You do genuinely revise. Yeah, absolutely. What else? Since the GCSE is so new, there's not many exam papers. How can we get exam practice? What you're going to see later on in the GCSE one is how close the different syllabuses are to each other. So I would suggest actually AQA, OCR A, OCR B, Eduqas and Edexcel are so similar that you've got 5 sets of last year's paper and specimen paper there to go through. So I would go ahead and get and use those for exam practice, right? That'd be my suggestion for you, Sarah. And yeah, as I say, work on it. If you've done those things, then you can feel absolutely sure you're ready for the real things and you're going there with confidence. Tips for knowing improving practical accuracy or precision questions. Absolutely, there is loads of. I'm going to do, if it's GCSE year after, I'm going to do an all the required practicals in GCSE video. If it's A level, then currently my most watched video is all of the core practicals in A level. So if it's A level, then find that one. That's a live feed from last year that was really good. And I'm doing triple science and always get below my target with so much revision. How should I improve? Maybe it's your target that's wrong in a way, and so don't really worry about it. Think about your best grade. This is Guerrilla Physics and we're all about getting the top grades, but that's your top grade that matters. Whatever your grade 9 is, you should be absolutely proud of it. Alright, at this point, should I just be completing exam questions and referring to the revision guides for notes if you need to? Yes, exactly, James. I think that's pretty much my point there. If you haven't made notes, if you have, then bully for you. Use them, scan them and share them to everyone. If they're beautiful, then publish them, you know. The revision guide's good enough, really. What's the best way to go about learning the content and making it stick properly is different for different sections necessarily, okay? Some of it, when it just says you need to memorize some stuff, then notes and flashcards are really good for that type of thing. But when it says you need to learn how to evaluate things or analyze data for this thing, then it's going to be a different type of situation, different way to learn that skill. You know, maybe it's actually you need to plot some graphs if the thing that you're failing on is your ability to plot graphs. Okay, my dudes, right, I'm going to drop the feed now. I hope that was useful for you all, and I will be back with this thing about black holes in just about 5 minutes. All right.